logo design tutorial in Figma, we made these these 4 different logos using a variety of techniques. Today we are going to learn to make one where we just take away a part of a stroke. And so let us first of all take a look at what this means. So we are going to just remove part of a stroke as opposed to a major part of a stroke. So last time when we worked on Vantage, we took away a whole bar and leg of the letter A. This time we're just going to take away a little bit. Some examples would be IBM, where we have the lines through it. This TP, where the inside of the P, that part of the stroke, is gone. And we are going to work on one like this stripe logo. So let's get going. All right, so first thing we are going to do in your artboard is we are going to take the text tool and we're going to make a text box, and we are going to type in stripe, and it doesn't fit right now, so I am going to make it fit here. Double click, there we go. I have already looked at the fonts that I want to use, and when you're going to take away part of a stroke, a serif font usually works well. I wanted a serif font, but I didn't want an overly elaborate font either. So I liked this Brie serif. Let me show you what I meant by an overly elaborate one. One where there's just, I guess, just a lot going on that draws your attention to it. So we get to some of these, there's just extra little things like this T here. It's just a little fancier, I suppose, than what I wanted. I wanted something a little bit more straightforward, so I chose stripe. We still have a little thing on the T here, but there's something about it that feels a bit more modern. It doesn't feel like a typeface for a book exactly, so it feels a little bit more modern to me. So let's go back to here. So stripe, and I've already chosen Brie Serif, and you should choose that too. We're going to bring it to 200 font, and I'm going to keep it black uh, so I can have the white showing through here. All right, so what are we going to do next? The next thing I am going to do is I am going to turn a grid on my frame here, because I want to be able to see how I'm going to position the stripes on here. And we haven't done this before, but grids are really useful. I'm going to click on my artboard, and there's 2 ways I can do it, either through my layers panel over here. I can click on the artboard, or I could click up here on the title of the artboard. And by the way, we should name our frames, which I also call artboards a lot, um, so we know what's what. So it's a good idea to name your frame. So we have that clicked, and if you go to the right hand menu, you'll see layout grid, and we're going to click on plus, and it will automatically give us a grid with squares on it. And we can make some changes here, because right now those squares are really small, so I could click on here and I can increase the size to, let's say, 20. I might even want it bigger than that. Let's go with 30. And I could change the color if I want to of the grid. Maybe make it, it's already a red there. I could maybe, if I want to see it easier, take the transparency up. Uh, so that's something I can do here. This is a grid, and it's what we are going to use for this tutorial. However, I just want to show you there are other possibilities here. You can have columns, and when we get into web design, I actually prefer columns, and I usually like 12 columns, and I like to have more space between them. So 70 is about what we often use in web design. And right now they're stretched all the way across the frame. And in web design, we often aren't designing on the edges, so I don't really need columns on the far edges, so I usually will center them. And then I have, and I might want them wider too, so go 70 here. And then I have, so I can line things up nicely. But today I actually do want the grid because, oh, I don't want it 70. I changed it to 70 for the columns, but for the grid I actually like 30. Okay, so now we have our grid on. And what I am going to do next is I am going to take the rectangle tool and I am going to draw a rectangle, basically just a box. And I want the width of this box to be 8. And the width or the height of 116 is fine right now. Let me just do 120 to get a round number there. And so here it is. Now I need it at an angle, and so I can go over here, and I know that I want it to be, so I can make a diagonal line, which means I'm going into the negative number. So I am just going to scroll through these different angles until it's what I want, and 30 degrees should be about what I want. Now I could also have just clicked in here and typed -30, but I did it that way. So, whoops, and I accidentally changed the size of the box instead of dragging it. So I'm going to click undo there, and sometimes the boxes can be tricky to grab. All right, so I am now going to place it here, and I have that. I'm now going to do Command D to duplicate it. We'll do another one there, and I'm going to do Command D. I'm going to place one down here. You know what I'm going to do? I think to make this easy, let's just do 2 at the top of the S and 2 at the bottom of the S. So Command D, make one more. All right, come on. You can move. Okay, let's see if I can. Oh, it's still not moving. So I'm just going to use my arrow keys since I'm having a hard time grabbing. I'm just going to use my arrow keys instead of trying to use my mouse to pick it up. Okay, so I have 2 here, and this is where I'm going to zoom in. And I want to have about the same space here as I have up here. And so if I look right now, I can use this and have this edge of this rectangle be at this box here, which would be, let's see, and the S is not perfectly aligned there with, so we don't have exactly the same box up here as we do down here. So part of this is right now I'm going to eye it. I would be more precise if I were actually creating a logo, but for right now I'm just kind of eyeing it. And you know, since this hits the box at a different place than this hits the box. Okay, so these are a little bit closer together. So let me move that one a little bit closer together. Oh, you know, I notice a problem here. I don't, well, no, actually this could work. So you see a little bit of the white in between this line and the S, and a little bit of white in between this line and this S, so that could work. So now I am going to select my rectangles and the word. So I've done it this way because I've selected it from the layers panel, because if I drew a box around it to select it, I would probably grab that T as well. So I didn't want to do that. Now I am going to go to my Boolean commands and I'm going to subtract. And now I have a nice little stripe. I've removed part of the stroke. And so that is how we remove part of the stroke for a logo design. The next thing we're going to do is use a shape to build a letter as opposed to using a font. So we have examples of this where we have the V in Vista point, the V in Valvoline, and a Q in Quintec, and the C with cumulus. And so we are going to work on creating this cumulus one next. All right, so we are in Figma. We have our basic board here, and this is what we're going to create now. So first thing we're going to do is we are not going to do a text box. We'll actually do that last. We are going to take the ellipse tool. So here we have all our tools. You'll go down and pick ellipse, and we are going to draw a circle. If you hold shift and at the same time as you draw the circle, it will be proportionate. I did not, so it's not proportionate right now. It's 328 by 343, but I am just going to go in and I am going to make it 400 by 400, and now it's proportionate. Great. Now there's a few things about the ellipse tool that we haven't talked about, and that is that that's actually where these kind of C's come from, is from here. You'll notice there's a little handle here, and we can pull this handle to make kind of a mouth. And I am going to just get a kind of a 75% mouth here. So I've just pulled it in, and it says sweep 75%, good. But now I want it to be more angled. Instead of kind of that mouth pointing to the top corner, I want the top of the mouth to be here. So if I grab this little handle now, I can move it like this. Great. So now you can see I have more of this shape here, but there's all this stuff inside. How do I change it? Now I grab this middle and I am going to pull until I'm happy with how much I have there, and probably anywhere between 85 to 90 should work pretty well here, and so I'm just going to drop it there. So what I can do now is I can make a fill here. So if I click on the fill, I'm just going to go kind of dark blues to lighter blues. So we'll start out with the blue here, and I'm going to pick a blue. Ooh, that's maybe too much. Let's go. Actually, I'm not happy with that shade of blue. Okay, now it's a little bit better. Okay, let's just do like that. All right, so I have that, and now I am going to duplicate it. Command D, drag that out, but I need this to be smaller. I'm going to make it 300 by 300, and then I can just place it inside. I'm going to do, oh, now I want to change the fill on that one, so let's make it a little bit lighter now. A little bit lighter there. Great. Now I'm going to duplicate it, Command D, and I want this one to be 200. I'm going to drag that down, and here I'm going to change that to be an even lighter color. Yeah, that's good enough. Now maybe a little bit lighter. Okay, there we go. All right, so now we have there. And so at this point now I'm going to draw a text box. And I'm going to draw a text box. However, I am also going to go back and do one more thing with those C's in a moment, but let me type in cumulus, and it doesn't fit, so I'm going to click on that arrow, make it fit, and let me just set that aside for a minute, and I'm going to select my 3 C's here again, my 3 ellipses, and I'd want to make sure that they're aligned, so I'm going to align the horizontal centers and the vertical centers to make sure that that they're as they should be. Okay, I've done that. Let me go back to my cumulus, and I had looked at fonts when I was I wanted a nice round font. I wanted a sans serif for this one, and as I looked, so I just wanted something, just that nice rounded, simple, and Poppins I used, and Poppins actually is fairly popular in web design, so it's one that's used quite a bit. And then if we want to color, we go back to the board, let's color our text, make it more like a blue, more like that dark blue that we had. And so I just picked it from what my document colors are here, the ones I've used already, and then you just have to position it however you want. And of course you have choices. You could put it in here, you could put it out, you could put it under. There are different things that you could do if you put it under. At that point I might make it smaller, make the font smaller so that it would fit nicely under there, something more like that. And the last thing we're going to do is we are going to select all those. We're going to select the cumulus and all the ellipses, and we are going to make them a union so that we can easily move it around. Oops, and I actually chose two cumulus, so I'm going to undo that and get rid of, I'm going to do Command C to get rid of that cumulus. Now I just have this one. Now I'm going to do the union selection, and now if I do that, I want you to notice that it has changed my colors here because it makes them all the same. So this means we actually wouldn't want to do a union command, so we're going to undo, and instead we can do a right click and we can group the selection, and that way we can keep all of our colors here and be able to move it easily. All right, hope you got great ideas for your own logo design. Can't wait to see them.